moment this story happened just before the new year and just before Christmas about how they say a U-turn, Mo, but I think this is a little bit more of a watering down than a U-turn, because a U-turn would mean we wouldn't have this, and yet it's still here, isn't it?
Well, yeah, Happy New Year to you and all your listeners. It's very festive behind you, Peter.
I know, it's not merely me, is it, Mo? So. You've known me for a long time. This really isn't me.
It suits you. It suits you. Yeah. Well, it's good to be here. And look, yeah, I agree with you, Peter. It's not a U-turn. It is partial changes to a policy which, quite frankly, should never have existed. And Labour candidates, prior to the last general election, were going around saying wouldn't have happened in the first place, which is why a lot of farmers and people living in the countryside warmed to Labour, perhaps for the first time ever. And then shortly after getting elected, before their Labour rural MPs, of which they have around 100, could even order stationery, they were going into battle against the very people they had spent so long winning over. So I don't view this as a U-turn. I don't think anybody I speak to views it as such. I think that there is definitely, obviously, people who are pleased. There will be less farmers now impacted, but it never needed to happen in the first place. I'd like to see, be this the new year, resolutions and all that, that the Labour government start listening, agreeing with your caller there, that they start listening to what rural people are saying and get on with actually delivering for them. Instead, what we had last week, and it feels like years ago.
It really does, doesn't it? I was just about to make this comment. I can't believe this was, given everything that's happened in this time. This was just a week ago. But sorry, do carry on. I cut you off. Sorry, go on.
No, it's fine. The point I was making was that let's just, Peter, we've done this for a long time. These things don't just happen. You don't just make announcements out of nowhere. Last Monday, the government released its animal welfare strategy. It's been banging on about it for a long time, and it released it last Monday, and it was met with actually a lot of hostility. The reason it was met with a lot of hostility is because they essentially released a press release with no actual detail, and actually caused confusion, because they were talking about clamping down on cages and cages for British farmers, which, animal welfare in the UK is obviously hugely important, not least to our farmers. But what it meant was that they'd be undercut by foreign imports. So you've got loads of questions around that. Them talking about trail hunting again, boring everybody with that. You've just got a load of stuff in there that was that led journalists, but also rural groups like ourselves, to say, what the hell is going on? Is this more of the war on the countryside stuff? And I just don't think that the timing of the terrible reception to the animal welfare strategy last Monday, and then suddenly announcing that they're going to implement partial changes on Tuesday, the day after, is a coincidence, Peter.
Yeah. I mean, me and you have been around long enough to know there's no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I find it very telling that the original policy was announced by Rachel Reeves. It got dropped on the DEFRA secretary, which most people watching this couldn't even name. That tells you everything, that this is a toxic policy, and Number 10 want rid of it. I'm going to say, for those who don't know, the original policy that it was farms, correct me if I'm right here, Mo, of over 1 million was going to be the threshold, and then now they've changed it to 2.5. You might know the number off your head. How many farms are we talking about now that have been at least given a reprieve? Because I don't say saved. I think reprieve is a more correct word.
Yeah, it's. I don't know the specific number. I'm still waiting for the data myself, and I've been.
I just thought, being the Countryside Alliance, you might get the numbers before I do.
You're not going to get. No, I mean, I'm not. Certainly, what I'm not going to be doing is basing anything on what the Treasury has said.
I think that's just a general rule of thumb, isn't it, Mo? For as long as me and you've worked in politics, no matter which party's in control, the Treasury is never in control.
Well, they're saying the vast bulk of them, but as per usual, I'm starting to hear more and more from people who aren't going to be, who aren't saved at all. But look, we'll wait and see. But it is fair to say there is a lot less anxiety in relation to that policy that there was prior to last week. That being said, though, Peter, a lot of the damage is already done.
That's the point.
It has caused sleepless nights for a lot of people that have a very difficult enough job as it is. They have, and let's not forget, the Prime Minister did double down on this policy for a very long period of time, even attempting to pit farmers against NHS
I
workers.
cannot believe
Do you want an
had to
NHS
have...
or farming inheritance tax?
I cannot believe we had to have tractors in Whitehall for farmers to be heard. I mean...
Well, at least several times.
Yes, I just find that astounding. You'd think they would have a hotline straight to the Treasury and straight to number 10. The importance of food security, the importance of the countryside, and just to, general pleasantness of the nation. We are the green and pleasant land. Farming, as me and you have talked about this many times, is in the blood for so many of these families. They don't expect to make a profit from it. They can see themselves as custodians, that you give it to the next generation. And the Labour Party have never understood that. I agree with you, actually, that, Keir Starmer made a concerted effort. I've got to correct that. Morgan McSweeney made a concerted effort to go after those countryside and countryside adjacent seats. I think it's about 150-odd-ish. That's real politics. That's real numbers, isn't it? And, yet to throw that all away in the first couple of months for very little return makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to anybody I've ever spoken to.
No, it's absolutely bizarre. I don't understand the strategy, and I really do hope that those Labour rural MPs, of which there are around 100, and there have been a significant chunk who have started to put their heads above the parapet and make a bit of noise. You saw that a couple of weeks ago with that vote in Parliament on the inheritance tax. One bravely voted against it, Marcus Campbell-Savers. I don't know if he's had an apology yet and had the whip reinstated. But, there are Labour MPs who are making a bit of noise, and they're going to have to, because, they have a duty to represent their rural constituents. And by the way, most rural people don't have, specific issues that are that different to urban areas. What they want is for a government to focus on delivering for them. Instead, what we had is a government that, despite making some partial changes to inheritance tax, it's still banging on about clamping down on shotguns. Peter, that's going to hit. That is going to hit over half a million people across the countryside. It's going to massively hurt the rural economy. It's going to dent conservation efforts. Why are they doing it? It doesn't need to happen. They know this, and I just hope that in the new year, we have make this a year where those rural Labour MPs get the government back on track and delivering for rural people, not going down the age-old culture war route, because it's incredibly tiresome and it's not helping anybody.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I know that Reform brought out, and they made some comments when it came to trail hunting, and yet the culture war, the kind of buzz was right around it, and I know that we've spoken about it previously, but, I find it interesting, the number of people who ring and text into these kind of shows say that they were very angry with Reform about, their policies when it came to trail hunting. But you were a lot less surprised, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think Reform would say that what they're doing, look, this isn't about trail hunting. We're not talking about fox hunting, Peter. That was banned a long time ago. What we're talking about is trail hunting, which is what the Labour government told these people to do when they spent 700 parliamentary hours debating it 20 years ago. And now somehow that suddenly made its way back. This isn't anything new from Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, as you know, has always supported rural country pursuits and has been a very big voice on rural issues for a long time. So this is nothing new. This isn't about foxes. It's not about animal welfare. It's about looking at a group of people who have probably been ignored for a very, very long time, rural people. And in the same way that Labour have made a culture war about them, I just feel that Reform, what they're doing is just trying to give a voice to people who have been, in many ways marginalised over a long period of time. But it's not just been Reform. The Conservatives have been extremely vocal over the last few weeks.
I know Kemi really seized on this issue, really, didn't she? I think the Conservatives saw the gap very quickly on this issue.
Well, Kemi was at a point-to-point the other day, a point-to-point race meeting. You had the party chairman, Kevin Hollenrake. He was at a meet too. Several Conservative MPs at Boxing Day trail hunt meets. I think this is about reconnecting with a large group of people. I'm not saying everyone in the countryside, by the way, Peter, is pro trail hunting. Most people are ambivalent and don't care.
I think that's I think that's a really good point, actually, that not all the countryside thinks the same, in the same way that not everybody in the city thinks the same. You know, the way that people talk about voter blocks as though they all think the same thing, I've always found hilarious, because I always say, get 10 people in a room and I'll give you 200 different opinions on the same issue. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous the way people talk about it. But I was going to say, when it comes to reform support, I was reading a poll the other day that in those kind of seats, it's jumped 40%. You know, again, this is real kind of real numbers that people like me and you look at and pore over because we're nerds and, you know, don't have much of a social life anymore. But it's so important when we look at this from a kind of politics point of view, because it shows that if those Labour MPs, like you say, get their backbone, the Labour Party HQ, the central hub, have a lot of problems coming around the corner, because it's not just on the farmers that they didn't listen. Look at the winter fuel allowance. That's a big one. You know, we've got all this stuff with defence. No, they're never ever listening, are they?
Well, it's also, Peter, just on electoral mathematics. I mean, the countryside is still a place where they should be wanting to make some hold, so to hold some seats. You know, they know better than we do, but they surely are getting challenges in urban areas from the Green Party and these sort of this Your Party or whatever name they are now. But you know, there are challenges coming at them, and the Red Wall from Reform. I just think it's a very curious strategy to want to alienate 100 constituencies which are giving you the benefit of the doubt. And there is still time to change course, but that will involve working with farmers, working with the rural sector before making these press releases and dropping them in the...
Anyway, well, again, I completely agree with you. Let's grab that pint after the weekend, and yet